you tell us how your vision for Papo Yo began? So
My vision?
yeah, your vision for the game.
I think that I always wanted to make a game about but I always wanted to make games and I didn't know why I wanted to make games. When I realized that I wanted to do games to help other kids that were in similar situation like I was when I was a kid, I said, okay, now that I know that that's what I want to do, it is how am I going to do it? How are you going to do a game about a social heavy subject matter, and how you're going to do it after you've been doing like big AAA games? And then I got a lot of advice from Nilo Rodis. Nilo Rodis, he was my mentor at EA for a few years. He was art director for Star Wars, the first one, and he worked at Pixar. He designed Buzz Lightyear. And I got the chance to meet him, and this guy's amazing. And then one night I was having dinner with him, and I started crying, telling my story, and then he stopped me and said, "Vander, your story, don't get me wrong, it's a painful story, but many people have already told that story." And I was like, what happened to me? Why is my pain not important? It is where do I fit in here? And I got really angry. But then what I realized was that I needed to do this for others, not for me. Like, if I was doing this for me, I would have never done Papo. And then we keep talking, and then he told me, look, what you have to do is take the medium you master and tell your story. And the medium I mastered was video games, simulations. And then he told me, you have to find a metaphor that people can bear, that will not scare people away. If I was doing Papo Yo like I was doing, I don't know, Call of Duty, people will freak out. Imagine like you're playing there and you see some colleague father going inside. It wouldn't have been something appealing. But they told me that if I find a metaphor that didn't scare people, then people will come to the game. And then I worked really hard on the metaphor, and that took me a long time to figure it out that the metaphor was, the story is about a kid named Kiko and this monster who's addicted to frogs. And when he's a frog, he goes crazy and he wants to destroy everything. And the goal of his friend is to find a cure for the monster. Simple like that, and people are not afraid of it. And it's have a really heavy subject matter underneath. And I use that same way that I work out the metaphor. I use it to sell the game and to find financing for the game. If I went to Sony and I told them the story about my colleague father, would have never given money. But if I went to Sony with the story of a big monster addicted to frogs, and then they give me money.
So, at what point in your development that you were planning that you were able to think, man, this is the game I want to make?
It's a game I needed to make. It's kind of saying like, I think that suddenly we don't video game creators, we don't see ourselves as artists. And we are artists. So suddenly I have that game inside of me all the time. That's the game I needed to make. I had to get it out of my system. And I did it. And then now it's a lot more difficult to do games from now on.
So, could you walk us through the process in which you received funding from the Canada Media Fund and the Sony Pub Fund?
So, one advice that I give to independent developers it is that if you see the cinema and the independent cinema and the funding of independent cinema, almost all the funding for independent cinema has a governmental part of it in all the world, and a bit less in the States. And then what happens is that if you take that governmental cultural funds and then you pair it with a publisher, you get a lot of money to actually do something, you get a lot of resources to actually do something cool. and then and that is crucial in Canada or in any other place in the world. So because it is once you get money from the government and then you ask money from a publisher, the risk of the publishers will be reduced. So then they're very more willing to work with you. For example, one of the things that Sony, the Buff Fund was committed to do Papo was because we had money from the government too. So that alleviated the risk. So then the Canadian Media Fund is the most amazing tool to make games that Canadians have. Like everyone is jealous around the world of what we have, and we should take advantage as much as we can.
Well, the game Papo Yo tells a story similar to yours and your father's relationship. Did you find the development process to be a therapeutic one? And were there times when you had difficulty recalling memories from your childhood?
So, on that one, it is you have when you're dealing with big budgets that go above $1 million, is you have a lot of responsibility on your back to deliver something. So then you have to have your story and you have to have your story clear already inside of you. You have to have already deal with those subjects. Yeah, of course, in the process, here and there I remember a couple of stuff, but you have to have everything ready. You have to know what you're doing, because when you have a team of 12 people working, and then you go, okay, wait, let me go back to my past, and let me cope with this memory, and it doesn't work that way. So I've been to a lot of therapy. So I've been like almost already 10 years of therapy to be able to do this. So I've been working now, so suddenly, when I was thinking about a specific moment in the game, I knew exactly what I wanted. And I knew how to explain it to people and work with people to give them the right direction.
Well, and the game has a pretty good balance between platforming and puzzle elements. Could you walk us through the process of creating and balancing the puzzles to the environment in Papo Yo?
The things that you think that are balanced, many people don't think the same thing.
Oh, really?
really, it is that when you do puzzle games, it is the way that we wanted to balance it out. It was I hate Braid. Braid is an awesome platform. It's an awesome puzzle platformer, but it feels stupid. And many people felt stupid and dropped the game after 30 minutes. And then what happened, when I played Braid, I really liked what he was doing, but then I didn't like the fact that he made me feel stupid. Jonathan Blow. He's a great guy though. And then I wanted to make a game that it was not about making people feel stupid at all. I wanted to make a game about people experiencing being dependent of a monster that could have multiple sides, a good one and a bad one. So when I did that, I made puzzles that were really they couldn't be resolved in two ways. So suddenly, if you put a bit of rationality to it, you will solve it. But if you just start playing a bit around, you'll find a way to. So suddenly, it was catering for two types of audience: the more rational one and the most experimental one. So if you're an experimental person, you go into a puzzle and you just start moving pieces around and you'll figure it out. And if you're a rational one, you will economic or your analysis and you get there. So suddenly, every puzzle can be solved in those two ways. And then going back to balancing puzzle game, it's really hard because what happens is I met people on the street like who are not hardcore gamers, and they play the game and say, "Oh, we love the game, the puzzles are amazing." And then you get a hardcore guy and say like, "This is too easy." For example, Wired, the guy from Wired gave us a 3.7 on 5. He gave us a 3.7 or 4, I remember, because he found the puzzle to be too easy. And then it was a bit weird. So what I learned is that if you have a product that based on puzzles that have to feed that you want to please casual and hardcore, you'll never get a sweet point there ever. So then right now, I'm trying to stay away from doing too many puzzles in future games.
Well, one of the interesting puzzles that I played was the bridge puzzle. And we just showed it quite a while ago. So what you do is you get the boxes onto a part of the environment, and it builds a bridge using the houses. How did you come up with that idea?
So the way that I design it is I take aim to look. I'm really big into prototyping stuff and doing stuff myself. I'm not a creative director who's back telling people what to do. I do stuff. I eat most of the levels in the game. And then what happens there is I created this cliff. So suddenly we have a concept art piece that was a cliff, and in the other side you see a lot of favelas. And I thought that, oh, that's really cool. I want to create that cliff. So I created that cliff, and then I put myself on the other side. And I was playing and said, okay, if I have to get to the other side, but I cannot slide, what would I do? And then I start thinking of the multiple possibilities of what could I do. And then I said, oh, what about if I move this object and this object moves something in the other side? And oh, that's a great idea. Start prototyping, and then we prototyped it and it worked pretty well. And it just like it just creating the space. It is creating the space. And I'm thinking as the character, as for example, my goal in that puzzle exactly was to empower people. So when the game starts, it starts with this kid in the closet, so people will feel like powerless. They enter into this world and say, oh, every puzzle was about to give them power. So the first time you pull a rope, boom, you transform in a house. The second puzzle is that's the third puzzle, really. You get in the third puzzle, you move a box, and then you move a house. So then my frame set was, I want to think as a kid, and I want to do the things that a kid would like to do to empower the player at that moment. In other cases, I use completely different approach. But the magic happens. It is when you do a puzzle in the game, you have to know the intention, what you want to do, what you want to accomplish. Because otherwise, if you just do it like oh, this is a cool puzzle, and if it doesn't have the soul, it's gonna show people gonna feel it. That's not a good one.
Right. One thing you mentioned earlier was becoming powerful. And one thing that really got me when playing Papo Yo was that it turned character progression upside down. Where other games made your characters stronger, Quico actually became weaker as the game progressed. Could you elaborate on that design choice?
Yes. So what happened is, like, in video game industry, for the past, since the beginning, I don't know anyone else doing that. We have built layers to protect each other against the world. It's bigger armor, bigger armor, bigger armor. And then working in Army of Two, I remember how heavy the art director working, designing the armor. And it was, we got to the point, okay, what we're going to do special with the armor? So, oh, let's put a bullet marks on the guy's face. That was Army of Two. And then it was, for me, it was crazy seeing that suddenly we're carrying layers and layers. And in fact, the success that we get in life is not about shielding ourselves from the world. It is completely opposite. I bet you that any one of you, and you're going to figure out the success you have in life, have been about opening yourself to others. So then I wanted to put that in the game and say, like, look, I want to take away pieces of you, clothing of you. So if you see Kiko he starts losing his blazer, then he loses his shirt, he loses his shoes, and that one it is just opening yourself. It is becoming weaker. The moment you're able to acknowledge your weakness, you're actually strong. Opposite to them putting layers on top of you, it's just hiding your weakness.
Well, and that kind of goes into the next question. The world of Papo Yo starts out quite beautifully, like the favelas and all that. It's eye-catching even, but the deeper the adventure went, the longer the adventure went, the more the world became unhinged. Could you talk about that and how it fit into the story and the design process?
So I wanted. So the way that I did the story arc, and in the story arc for the game, I divided it in 5 acts, and then I went, and each act was a period in my life. It was from 0 to 10, to 10 to 15, 15 to 20, 20 to 25, 25 to 30. And then in each one of those layers, in each one of those acts, I want to portray what it felt at that moment in life. So when you're a kid, you think everything's fantastic, everything's beautiful. Even if the world's terrible, you find magic in it. And as you grow older, it's getting modern. It's getting more gray and modern, and so you have to figure out how to transform that into something beautiful again. So that reason the game becomes really, really dark. And then at the end, what I wanted to do is break Kiko's fantasy into pieces. Because when you start the game, you enter into a fantasy world, and the fantasy world is solid enough to keep you engaged. What I wanted to do is like break his dream, because he cannot hold on that dream anymore, because he's hurting himself. He has to break and say, this is not a game. This is reality, and that's the reason I put the choker like in the final act when you're taking the gondola and then the monster transforms into a father. That was a way of breaking the world and saying, look, this is real. This happened to real people. You have to deal with it.
So, Monster is one of the biggest parts of the game, and he becomes dangerous whenever he would eat frogs. To be honest, I thought the frogs in the game were quite entertaining and adorable in the beginning, but the more you progress through the game, the more you're afraid of them by the end. Was that how you felt about the alcohol?
No, that metaphor didn't came through well. I think that we started like, we tried with a lot of elements. Rotten fruits and many magic potions and a lot of stuff, and then none of them work. No, not for me. It worked for. But what happens is that once we were in a brainstorming and someone suggested, "What are frogs?" and we're like, "Frogs," and suddenly it kicked me deep inside, and I'm like, "Frogs." I hate frogs. I cannot touch a frog. If I see a frog, I go running. I remember once I was in Argentina with my wife and my kid, and then we were on vacations and we were in the yard of my brother-in-law, and I'm exploring with my 3-year-old kid, and suddenly we exploring the plants, and suddenly I see a frog, and I just started running away to call my wife. There's a frog, go take care of our kid. I wouldn't want to show him how afraid I am of the frogs. So suddenly, they became frogs. And then, yeah, they became really cute in the game, and then they turned evil. So that was kind of an unexpected